You arrive at the dock before sunrise, carrying everything you still own in your hands. The harbor is cold, wet, and crowded. Boots scrape across slick wooden planks. Trunks are dragged through mud. Ropes creak against the hulls of ships waiting in the fog. Around you, strangers speak in different accents, different languages, different prayers, but every face carries the same question. Will this ship carry us to a new life? Or will the Atlantic take everything before we get there? You do not board like a wealthy passenger. There is no private cabin waiting for you. No soft bed. No table set with clean linen. Your ticket is the cheapest passage available. It does not lead upward. It leads down, past the deck, past the cargo, past the sailors and the fresh air, down through a dark hatch, into the belly of the ship. This is steerage. And for thousands of immigrants in the mid-19th century, this was the price of crossing the ocean. Above you, the Atlantic stretches like a promise. Below you, it feels like a punishment. The first thing you notice is the ceiling. It is low enough to make your body bend without thinking. Wooden beams pressed down over rows of narrow berths. Trunks are jammed beneath rough sleeping shelves. Barrels, sacks, blankets, tin cups, damp clothing, and human bodies fill every corner. This is not a room designed for comfort. It is a space designed to fit as many people as possible. Your berth is not really a bed. It is a wooden shelf, barely wide enough to lie on. The straw smells old. The boards are hard. If you are lucky, you have a thin blanket. If you are very lucky, a curtain gives you the illusion of privacy. But privacy disappears almost immediately. Every cough is heard. Every argument is witnessed. Every movement wakes someone. You sleep, eat, wait, sweat, shiver, and fear in the same cramped darkness as strangers. The ship begins to move. At first, the motion feels almost gentle, a slow pull away from the dock, a final separation from land. Then the harbor fades behind you. The coastline sinks into mist, and the ocean becomes the only world left. For a moment, hope survives. People climb close to the hatch to catch one last breath of cold air. They look up toward the sky as if it were a blessing. Some whisper prayers. Some clutch letters they cannot read without trembling. Others stare silently into the dimness, already wondering what they have done. Then the seasickness begins. The floor tilts beneath your feet. The walls seem to breathe. Lanterns swing from beams, throwing shadows over pale faces. The ship rises, drops, rolls, and shudders. Your stomach follows every movement. Food becomes difficult before it becomes scarce. Hard bread, salted meat, thin soup, a tin cup of water. It sounds simple enough on land. At sea, in a closed wooden hold, with your body fighting the motion of the waves, even swallowing can feel like an act of strength. Some passengers brought food from home, packed carefully into sacks and boxes. Others depend on what the ship provides. But no one controls the length of the crossing. A favorable wind can be a gift. A dead calm can become a sentence. A voyage expected to last weeks can stretch longer. And every extra day changes the meaning of your supplies. Bread hardens. Meat spoils. Water grows cloudy. A spilled cup becomes more than a mistake. It becomes a loss. In steerage, survival is measured in small things. A dry blanket. A place to sit. A breath of air. A cup of water that does not taste of the barrel. A piece of food that your body can keep down. Then the weather turns. From below deck, you do not see the storm arrive. You feel it first. The ship begins to lean harder. The beams groan. Footsteps rush above you. The sound of wind thickens into a roar. Water strikes the hull like thrown stones. Then someone closes the hatch. The one opening between you and the sky becomes a sealed lid. The air changes quickly. It grows warmer, heavier, sour with damp wool, sickness, sweat, old food, seawater, lantern smoke, and fear. The smell has nowhere to go. Neither do you. Above deck, sailors fight ropes and sails. Below deck, you fight panic. Buckets slide across the planks. Trunks shift. Hanging clothes sway like ghosts. A lantern nearly goes out, and for a second the entire compartment seems to vanish into blackness. The ship rises on a wave and falls hard. Someone gasps. Someone prays louder. Someone begins to retch into a bucket already too full. A child would be terrified here, but even grown adults become small inside a storm. The darkness turns every sound into a warning. Was that the cargo moving? Was that a plank cracking? Was that normal? Could you sleep while the hull sounds alive around you? Could you stay calm when the only door to fresh air is sealed above your head? The storm eventually passes, but the damage remains inside people. Not always in broken wood. Sometimes in broken nerves. After hours below deck, the silence after the storm feels unnatural. Passengers sit without speaking. Damp clothing clings to their bodies. The floor is wet. The air is stale. Someone checks a bundle. Someone tightens a rope around a trunk. Someone stares at nothing. The Atlantic has taught everyone something important. You are not crossing the sea. You are being allowed to cross it. And permission can be withdrawn at any moment. On calmer days, the hatch opens again. Cold daylight falls into the hold like mercy. People move toward it slowly, blinking as if waking from underground. Some climb to the deck. Some wash their faces with what little water they can spare. Some hang damp clothes in weak sunlight and hope the wind will carry away the smell of steerage. For a few minutes, the horizon restores your mind. There is sky again, space again, air that moves. But even then, the ocean surrounds you completely. No town, no road, no field, no church bell, no market, no familiar voice from home. Only water, wind, rope, canvas, and the slow uncertainty of westward travel. Then you go back below, and the hold feels smaller than before. In steerage, the mind begins to measure distance differently. Not miles, steps. How many steps from your berth to the hatch? How many bodies between you and the water barrel? How far to the ration line? How many nights until land? Nobody knows. The days begin to blur. Morning is not sunrise. It is the moment the compartment becomes slightly less dark. Night is not sunset. It is the time when the lanterns weaken and the ship becomes a chamber of breathing bodies. People try to build routines. They mend clothes, count food, clean what can be cleaned, whisper stories, trade warnings, share scraps of advice, guard their belongings, guard their dignity. But steerage creates pressure. Too many people in too little space will eventually change the way strangers look at one another. A quiet disagreement over food becomes sharper. A place in line becomes important. A cup of water becomes something to watch. Hunger makes voices harder. Exhaustion makes patience thin. Still, there is also kindness. A hand offers water to someone too weak to sit up. A passenger gives space on a berth edge. A stranger steadies another during a roll of the ship. In a place built without mercy, people sometimes become the only mercy available. But sickness is the fear no one can ignore. Overcrowding, bad air, poor sanitation, and contaminated water can turn discomfort into danger. Fever does not need much space to spread. Neither does suspicion. One cough changes the mood. One person shivering under a blanket makes everyone glance toward the same corner. Typhus, cholera, dysentery, smallpox. Even the names carry fear. Most passengers are not doctors. They know symptoms by rumor, by memory, by loss. They know that below deck there is no true isolation, no clean room, no easy escape. If illness takes hold in steerage, the ship itself can begin to feel infected. People keep their distance when they can, but there is nowhere far enough to go. You begin to understand that the danger is not only the ocean outside the ship. It is the air inside it. It is the water barrel, the spoiled ration, the closed hatch, the damp blanket that never dries, the silence after someone stops coughing. And still, the ship moves west. The 1850s are a turning point on the Atlantic. Steamships are beginning to change ocean travel. Passenger laws are beginning to demand better space, ventilation, and provisions. Officials can inspect ships. Regulations can be written. But paper does not breathe for you. A law does not make a low ceiling higher. A regulation does not dry your bedding during a storm. A rule does not calm the sea. Inside steerage, history is not an idea. It is wood, water, hunger, and waiting. Every trunk around you tells a story reduced to objects. A folded shirt, a tool, a keepsake, a letter, a little food, a memory of a place someone may never see again. Some people left because of famine, some because of poverty, some because work disappeared, some because the future behind them had become smaller than the risk ahead. That is the cruel bargain of steerage. You suffer because hope is still alive. If there were no hope, no one would enter this darkness voluntarily. And yet, as the voyage continues, hope becomes harder to hold. The sea can turn calm and trap the ship in place. Sails hang slack. The water looks almost still. Fog closes around the hull. There is no storm, no drama, no movement, only waiting. A dead calm can be its own kind of torture. No wind means no progress. No progress means more days. More days mean less food, less patience, less certainty. People sit in the dim hold and listen to nothing happening. That may be the worst sound of all. Then, days later, wind returns. The ship moves again. The horizon shifts. The Atlantic gives back what it withheld. You begin to imagine land. At first, it feels dangerous to believe in it. Then one morning, something is different. The air changes. Footsteps gather above. Voices sharpen. The ship slows. People who have spent weeks staring at darkness begin to lift their heads. The hatch opens, and daylight enters with a force that almost hurts. Passengers climb toward the deck carrying bundles, trunks, and bodies weakened by the crossing. The sky looks too large. The wind feels too clean. The world seems unreal. Then you see it. A harbor. Docks. Masts. Warehouses. A shoreline in mist. New York. Boston. Quebec. Or another port where the old life ends and the next one begins. But arrival is not the same as victory. You still have to be inspected. You still have to answer questions. You still have to find work, shelter, food, and a place in a country that may not welcome you easily. The ocean crossing is over. The struggle is not. But if you survived steerage, you have already passed through one of the hardest thresholds of your life. You have spent weeks in darkness beneath the deck. You have breathed stale air when the hatch was closed. You have eaten what the sea allowed to last. You have listened to storms strike the hull. You have watched sickness move through a room too crowded for escape. You have learned that hope can be heavy, and that freedom can begin in a place that feels like a prison. When the last passengers leave the hold, steerage becomes quiet. The berths are empty. The lantern light fades. A tin cup sits where someone once guarded water. A damp blanket lies folded over rough wood. The hatch above glows with morning. For the ship, it was only another voyage. For the people below, it was a passage between worlds. The transatlantic steerage journey was not romantic. It was not clean. It was not heroic in the way paintings make history heroic. It was cramped, wet, dark, frightening, and human. It asked a brutal question. How much discomfort, fear, hunger, sickness, and uncertainty could a person endure for the chance to begin again? And if you had been there, below deck, in the damp belly of the Atlantic, with the hatch closing above you and weeks of ocean still ahead, could you have survived?